Hello and good day everyone. So today we are going to learn about the audit evidence. Okay, audit evidence. What does it mean by audit evidence? So audit evidence is the information obtained by the auditor in arriving at the conclusion on which the audit opinion is based. It comprises source documents and accounting records underlying the financial statements and corroborating information from other sources. So the audit evidence is actually the collections of the documents where the auditor need in order to give the opinion. Okay, so the objective of the audit evidence, where the auditor should obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence to be able to draw reasonable conclusion on which to base the audit opinion. Okay, as you all know that the auditor have to give the reasonable assurance where the financial statement is a true and fair view. Okay, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay, what does it mean by sufficiency? So sufficiency is the measure of quantity of audit evidence, where when you collect the audit evidence, it's sufficient for the auditors to arrive for the conclusion. Appropriateness. Appropriateness is the measure of the quality of audit evidence and its relevance to a particular assertions and reliability. Factors which are influence to the judgment of auditor regarding sufficient appropriate audit evidence are nature and level of inherent risk. So all of these factors you have to take in where it influences the judgment of auditor. Okay, so inherent risk, where the possibility that the auditor cannot detect the audit risk, or the internal control of the client. And the nature of the accounting and internal control system and control risk. Materiality of the item being examined, where when the evidence that you collect, is it exceed the certain level set up by the auditor themselves. And then experience gained during previous audit. Result of audit procedures, source and reliability of information available. So there is a question to form an opinion in reporting financial statement from the balance sheet item. Okay, you can ask the question such as, have all of the asset and liability been recorded? To determine the items of sufficiency and appropriateness, you can, as the auditor, there is a question in mind where all the asset and liability have been recorded, and they do record the asset and liability exists, and then the asset owned and liabilities are belong to the enterprise. So those questions you, as the auditor, you should ask in order to collect the sufficient audit evidence. And then have the amount arrived at in accordance with the policy, and have all the items in the ledger, in the journal, in the account is properly disclosed, right? And then from the profit and loss account, okay, the question that you need in order to form the sufficient audit evidence, such as, have all income and expense been recorded? Okay, did the recorded income and expense transaction in fact occur? Does it really occur? So you have to determine from the profit and loss items, okay, whether there is existence of the expense. And then have the income and expense have been measured in accordance with the accounting policy, and have income and expense have been properly disclosed where appropriate, right? So sources of audit evidence, okay, you can determine from the test of control. Okay, so test of control where tests performed to obtain audit evidence about the suitability of design and effective operation of the accounting and internal control system, where you test whether the operations of the clients is suitable. Okay, and then substantive procedure is the test performed to obtain audit evidence to detect any material misstatement in the financial statement by using detail of transaction and balance, and also analytical procedure. Okay, substantive procedure is where you perform the test to obtain the audit evidence to detect the material misstatement by using the analytical procedure. Okay, analytical procedure such as you looking at the trend or any changes of the ratio, you make the comparative of the figure. Okay, then financial statement assertions. Okay, what is financial statement assertions? Okay, assertions are the representations, wakil, representations of the management, explicit or otherwise, in the financial statement. Okay, so they can be categorized as follow, which are existent. Okay, what does it mean by existence? Existence is where an asset or liability exists at a given date. You refer to the balance sheet, and you have to determine, as the auditor, you have to determine whether the assets and liability is really exist at the given date, because there sometimes they could occur that the fraud that may occur relating the PPE, property, plant and equipment, where the asset is actually does not exist, but the receipt is fake. So you have to, as the auditor, you have to be critical thinking. Okay, and then right and obligations. Okay, right and obligation where an asset or liability pertains to the entity at a given date. Occurrence, you have to determine as the auditor a transaction or event took place actually incurred during the accounting period. It's look like existent. And then completeness, there are no unrecorded assets. Okay, all complete. Okay, liability, transaction or event or undisclosed item. So you have to disclose all the items. Valuations, where an asset or liability is recorded at an appropriate carrying value. Measurement, a transaction or event is recorded at the proper amount and revenue or expense is allocated to the proper periods. It's according to your accounting period. So let's say you want to record the management record the prepaid expense. So you have, as an auditor, you have to make sure the prepaid expense record in the correct accounting period. Okay. Presentation and disclosure. An item is disclosed, classified, and described in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. You have several financial reporting framework, which is MPSAS, Malaysian Public Sector Accounting Standard, or FRS, Financial Reporting Standard. So you have to follow those standards. And then validity and authorizations. All the transaction records are totally authorized by the management and are valid in the accounting period. So what is the procedure in order to obtain the audit evidence? Okay, this is the procedure. Okay, basically this procedure you can use also in your case study. Okay, when you read out the paragraph, the sentence, you have to find what type of procedure should be taken in order to obtain the audit evidence. So the first one is inspection. So it consists of examining examine the records, documents to varying their degree of reliability. You have to determine the reliability. And it also consists of examining tangible assets with respect to their existence, but not necessarily as to their ownership or value. You do the examinations as well as inspection. And observation, it consists of looking at the process or procedure being performed by others. You observe. You make observation. Inquiry. What does it mean by inquiry? Well, it consists of when you are seeking information of a knowledgeable person inside or outside the entity. It can be in form of written inquiry addressed to third parties or informal oral inquiries addressed to inside. So you can make, as the auditor, you can make inquiry. You can set why the expense. Please state the amount, the original amount with the documents related. Okay, and then you can ask why. For example, why the PPE, let's say the property, plant and equipment, the management is still buying the PPE, but the operation has been stopped. So, for example, the operation of the company has been stopped, but the company is still buy the machinery. For what? So you keep make inquiry, yeah? And then confirmation. It consists of response to an inquiry to corroborate information contained in the accounting records. You make the confirmation to the personnel. Okay, computations, or you make recalculation. Okay, computation, where it consists of checking the arithmetical accuracy of sources, documents, and accounting record. So as the auditor, you can inquiry for documents such as the calculations of depreciation, for example. So you can also check the accuracy, whether the depreciation is according to the method they apply or not. And then analytical procedure, it consists of the analysis of significant ratio and trends. You see the changes of trend, which include the resulting investigation of fluctuation. Okay, types of audit evidence. Okay, types of audit evidence is same like the assertion you put in order to collect the audit evidence. So first one is physical examination. Okay, physical examination where you use for the tangible asset, okay, asset that you can see, in order to verify the existence. And then confirmation, you make the written correspond from the third party, letter signed by client but received by auditor. And then mathematical evidence, where you have to make the recalculations of computations. Documentation, examination client supported documents through the internal and external documents. Inquiries of the client, where you make the oral or written information from the client and confirmation by the other sources. Finally, analytical review procedure, where you make comparison of recorded amounts. You compare the amounts, and let's say you can compare with the industry average when you make the financial ratio. Let's say you compare with the industry average. So this is the characteristic of evidence, where those evidence must be relevant, freedom from bias, must be objective, and persuasiveness. Okay, relevance means evidence must be relevant, where the auditor should keep in mind the objective of audit and obtain evidence according to objective. And then freedom from bias, where auditor must be careful in collecting evidence which is free from bias. And objectivity is the ability of different auditors to reach a similar conclusions based on an examinations of evidence. And persuasiveness, where evidence is sufficient in quality and quantity to allow auditor to reach a conclusion, must be sufficient. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.